The voices from downstairs woke me up at midnight. I was supposed to be sleeping, but stage 3 lung cancer doesn't care about your sleep schedule. My body was weak, but my hearing was still perfect. That's how I heard my husband Mark whispering to my best friend Amanda in our kitchen. "We can't keep hiding this anymore," Mark said softly. "I know," Amanda replied. "But she's so sick. How can we tell her now?" My heart stopped beating for a moment. "Tell me what?" I crept to the top of the stairs, my bony fingers gripping the railing. The cancer had made me skinny and frail, but it hadn't made me stupid. "The doctors said 12 to 18 months, Mark continued. "That was 6 months ago." Amanda's voice got quieter. "I feel terrible about this timing." "Don't," Mark said firmly. "What we have is real." We were both there for each other while she was going through treatment. Going through treatment. Like I wasn't still fighting for my life. My legs gave out, and I had to sit on the stairs. My husband of 15 years and my best friend since college were planning something behind my back. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just sat there listening to them discuss my life like I was already gone. The next morning, they acted normal. Mark brought me breakfast in bed, kissing my forehead like always. Amanda came over with groceries, helping around the house like she had for months. But I noticed things differently now. When Amanda lingered after Mark left for work, staying to help with housework. When Mark came home with flowers for no reason, guilt written across his face. When they both got quiet whenever I entered a room. A week later, they couldn't hide anymore. "Emma," Mark said, sitting on our bed after dinner. "Amanda and I need to discuss something important with you." Amanda sat in the chair beside my bed, fidgeting with her hands. She looked nervous but determined. "We've grown close during this difficult time," Amanda started carefully. "Supporting each other through your illness." "What Amanda is trying to say," Mark interrupted, "is that we've developed feelings for each other." I stared at them both. "Feelings. We're in love," Mark said simply. "We didn't plan it, but we can't ignore it anymore. While I'm fighting cancer, you two fell in love?" "It wasn't intentional," Amanda said quickly. "We were both so scared of losing you. We leaned on each other for support." "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns," Mark added. "We need to be honest about where we all stand." They wanted honesty while planning my replacement. I didn't speak to either of them for 3 days. I stayed in my bedroom, claiming fatigue from treatment. But I was thinking, processing what I'd heard and seen. On the 4th day, I needed something from the kitchen. My legs were unsteady, but I managed the stairs slowly. That's when I saw Amanda throwing something away quickly when she heard me coming. After she left, I checked the trash. A pregnancy test box, empty. My hands started shaking. I searched through the garbage more carefully and found it. A white plastic stick with 2 pink lines buried under coffee grounds. Amanda was pregnant. With my husband's baby. While I was fighting for my life upstairs, they were creating new life together. I heard Mark's car in the driveway and quickly covered everything back up. That evening, I pretended to be asleep when Mark came to check on me. But I heard him on the phone in his office afterward. "The situation is getting complicated," he said quietly to someone. "We need to think about long-term care options. Something with more medical support." Long-term care. They wanted me somewhere else. Away from their perfect new beginning. Willowbrook Care Center has an excellent oncology program, Mark explained 2 weeks later, showing me a brochure. They specialize in long-term cancer treatment. "It's 2 hours away," I said weakly. "That's because they're one of the best facilities in the state," Amanda added. She'd been spending more time at our house, no longer hiding her presence. "You deserve the highest level of care." "What about Lily?" I asked. "My 12-year-old daughter was my anchor to this world. She can visit regularly," Mark said. "And you'll have professional medical staff around the clock, instead of us trying to manage your care at home." But I understood the real reason. 2 hours away meant fewer visits from Lily. Fewer witnesses to their new relationship. More freedom to build their life together. "I'd rather stay home," I said. "Emma, be reasonable," Mark replied. "Your condition is progressing. We're not equipped to handle what's coming." 3 weeks later, Mark packed my belongings while Amanda helped fold my clothes with exaggerated care. Lily cried, clinging to me. "I don't want you to go, Mom," she sobbed. It's temporary, Mark lied smoothly. Until Mom stabilizes. But his eyes told a different story. He was already measuring our bedroom for Amanda's furniture. Willowbrook was clean and professional, but it felt like exile. The nurses were competent, but they weren't family. They weren't the people who'd promised to love me through sickness and health. Mark visited twice during my first month. Both visits lasted less than an hour, and he spent most of the time checking messages on his phone. "How are the treatments going?" he asked during his second visit. "Slowly," I answered. "The doctors are adjusting my medication." He nodded absently. "Good. That's good. Lily sends her love. School's keeping her busy. When can she visit?" "Soon," he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. "Let's get you settled first." After he left, I didn't see him again for 3 weeks. No calls, no texts, no visits. Amanda never came at all. The nurses tried to stay positive, but I overheard conversations during shift changes. "Poor thing. Family hasn't been by in weeks. Happens more than you'd think. Some people can't handle the long goodbye." But this wasn't about handling goodbyes. This was about them wanting me to fade away quietly while they started over. I lay awake every night, staring at the ceiling, realizing they were just waiting. Anger became my companion during those long nights. Not the explosive kind that burns out quickly, but the cold, calculating kind that builds strength over time. They thought I was helpless. They expected me to disappear quietly while they claimed everything I'd built. My house, my daughter, my life savings, my husband's loyalty. During my second month at Willowbrook, I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. Legal documents Mark had asked me to sign for convenience. Financial statements showing account activity I didn't remember authorizing. I'd been too sick and trusting to read carefully before. But now I had time and motivation. Nurse Kelly, I called during evening rounds. She was one of the more experienced nurses, with 20 years in elder care and a gentle but practical manner. "Yes, Mrs. Thompson? Can you help me understand something about power of attorney documents? I signed some papers when I was heavily medicated, and I'm not sure what they covered." Kelly sat down, her expression growing serious. "What kind of concerns do you have?" "I think my husband might be making financial decisions without fully consulting me." "That's definitely something to look into," she said carefully. "Would you like me to help you contact someone who specializes in these issues?" For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope mixed with determination. Kelly kept her word. A week later, she introduced me to Mrs. Sandra Wilson, a legal advocate who worked with patients' rights cases. "Tell me everything that's concerning you," Mrs. Wilson said, pulling out a notepad. I explained Mark's sudden interest in legal documents. Amanda's pregnancy, being moved 2 hours away from Lily, the power of attorney I'd signed while on strong pain medication. "Mrs. Thompson," she said carefully, "these situations are more common than you might think. Do you believe your husband is making decisions about your assets without proper consultation?" "I think he's planning for a future that doesn't include me," I said honestly. Mrs. Wilson took detailed notes. "The positive news is that you're clearly mentally competent. If documents were signed under duress or while you were heavily medicated, we might have grounds to challenge them." "What would that involve?" "First, we document everything. Every conversation, every decision, every concern. Then we review all legal documents you've signed recently. Is this expensive?" "I work with a program that provides reduced-cost legal services for patients in situations like yours. We'll figure out the finances as we go." That night, I started writing down everything I could remember. Dates, conversations, financial changes I'd noticed before coming to Willowbrook. The rehabilitation program at Willowbrook was more intensive than I'd expected. Physical therapy, nutritional counseling, and careful medication management were actually helping my energy levels improve gradually. My body was still weak, but my mind was becoming sharper as the heavy medication fog lifted. The cancer was still there, but it wasn't progressing as rapidly as originally predicted. During one of my phone calls with Lily, she gave me information that changed everything. "Mom, Amanda moved into our house," Lily said quietly. "She's living in your bedroom now." My grip tightened on the phone. "How long has that been happening?" "About 3 weeks. Dad says it's temporary because she's pregnant and needs help, but she brought all her furniture." How do you feel about that? Lily was quiet for a long moment. I hate it. She acts like she belongs there. Like she's my new mom or something. You don't have to accept that, sweetheart. You know who your real mother is. I know, but it's hard. Dad gets upset when I don't include her in things. After we hung up, I sat staring at the photos on my bedside table. Pictures of Lily and me from before the cancer. Pictures of our family when we were actually a family. They were already living like I was dead. 3 months into my stay at Willowbrook, I discovered something that shook me to my core. During a conversation with another patient's visitor, I learned that Mark had been telling people in our neighborhood that I was in hospice care. Hospice care meant end-of-life treatment. It meant giving up curative care for comfort care. It meant dying. Mrs. Wilson, I said during our next meeting, I need to understand something. Has my husband been making medical decisions about my care without consulting me? She reviewed my files carefully. Not according to your medical records here. But what are you concerned about? I told her about the hospice story Mark was spreading. That's concerning because hospice care is a specific medical designation, she explained. If he's representing your medical status incorrectly, it could affect insurance, legal matters, and your rights as a patient. What can we do? We need to document the discrepancy and ensure all your medical decisions are being made with your full informed consent. That afternoon, I called my doctor's office directly. Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Martinez said when she returned my call, your husband hasn't contacted us about any changes to your care plan. Your current treatment is still curative, not palliative. So Mark was lying to our neighbors about my medical status, preparing them for news of my death while I was actually showing signs of improvement. Dr. Martinez's next monthly evaluation brought unexpected news. My latest scans showed that the tumors weren't growing as aggressively as initially predicted. Mrs. Thompson, your response to treatment has been better than we originally hoped, she said. While we're not talking about a cure, we are seeing stabilization. What does that mean for my prognosis? It means you may have significantly more time than our initial estimates suggested. Possibly years rather than months. Years. The word hit me like lightning. Mark and Amanda were planning for my death within months, but I might have years to fight back. I decided not to share this news with Mark immediately. Let him continue operating under his assumptions while I figured out how to protect myself and Lily. Mrs. Wilson helped me start the process of reviewing and potentially revoking the power of attorney documents I'd signed while heavily medicated. This will take time, she warned. Legal processes move slowly, especially when we're challenging existing documents. I have time, I said, thinking about Dr. Martinez's words. We need to be strategic about this. Your husband can't know what we're doing until we're ready to act. Over the following weeks, we quietly gathered copies of all financial documents and reviewed every legal paper I'd signed in the past year. Lily's visits became my lifeline and my source of intelligence about what was happening at home. During a rainy October visit, she looked older and sadder than a 13-year-old should. They think I can't hear them talking, Lily said as we sat in the visitor's lounge. But I listen when they think I'm asleep. What do they talk about? Amanda complains about taking care of me. She says it's hard being pregnant and dealing with someone else's child at the same time. My heart ached for my daughter. What does your father say? He tells her it won't be forever. That once. She paused, looking uncomfortable. Once what, sweetie? Once you're not around anymore, they can send me to live with grandma or maybe boarding school. Boarding school. They weren't just planning to replace me as a wife. They were planning to remove my daughter from their perfect new family. I held Lily close, feeling her small body tremble with held-back tears. Lily, I need you to keep something very important secret. Can you do that? She nodded against my shoulder. The doctors think I'm doing better than anyone expected. I might have much more time than Dad thinks. Lily pulled back to look at me hopefully. Really? Really? But I need Dad and Amanda to keep thinking I'm getting worse. It's safer that way while I figure some things out. What do you need me to do? Just be my brave daughter and remember everything they say. Can you do that for me? Through Lily's reports and my own careful questioning during Mark's infrequent visits, I learned that he and Amanda were making increasingly bold plans. Amanda had quit her job, claiming pregnancy complications, and was using our joint accounts to redecorate the house. Mark had started referring to himself as a widower to new acquaintances, even though I was very much alive. They painted over your photos in the hallway, Lily told me during a November call. Amanda said the house needed fresh energy. What did they paint? Just beige. Everything is beige now. It doesn't look like our house anymore. The erasure of my presence was systematic and cruel. Mom, there's something else, Lily said hesitantly. I found papers on Dad's desk about selling the house. My blood ran cold. Are you sure? Real estate papers with our address. Amanda was looking at them with Dad last week. That evening, I called Mrs. Wilson. They can't sell the house without your signature, she assured me. Your name is on the deed. What if Mark tries to forge my signature? Then we'll have grounds for criminal fraud charges, she said grimly. But first, we had to prove it was happening. Mrs. Wilson worked with a forensic accountant to trace the financial activity in our joint accounts. What we discovered was systematic and devastating. Mrs. Thompson, your husband has been transferring significant amounts from your joint accounts to a separate account, the accountant explained. Over $40,000 in the past 6 months. For what? According to the transaction descriptions, home improvements, medical equipment, and maternity expenses. Mark had been steadily draining our savings while I was at Willowbrook. Amanda had been using my money to buy baby furniture, maternity clothes, and redecorate my house. We also found something concerning, Mrs. Wilson added. Your husband has been making inquiries about your life insurance policies. What kind of inquiries? Questions about claim procedures, beneficiary verification, and payout timelines. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were actively planning how to profit from my death. What are our options? I asked. We can file for asset protection, but it's complicated because you're still married. We need to build a solid case showing financial abuse before we act. How long will that take? Several months, minimum. Legal processes involving marital assets are complex. I realized this was going to be a long fight, not the quick resolution I'd hoped for. The process of protecting my assets turned out to be far more complicated than I'd expected. Because Mark and I were still legally married, his access to joint accounts was technically legitimate, even if morally wrong. The challenge, Mrs. Wilson explained during one of our meetings, is proving that the spending constitutes financial abuse rather than normal marital expenses. Buying baby furniture for his pregnant girlfriend isn't a normal marital expense. You're right, but we need documented proof that he's spending your money on his affair. That requires more investigation. Meanwhile, I learned that transferring assets while married would require Mark's consent or a court order. There was no quick way to protect everything I'd worked for. We need to approach this strategically, Mrs. Wilson advised. First, we establish a separate account in your name only. Then we document every inappropriate expenditure. Finally, we file for legal separation with asset protection. How long will that take? Best case scenario? 6 to 8 months. More likely, close to a year. A year felt like forever when I didn't know how much time I actually had. But Mrs. Wilson helped me open a separate checking account and slowly transfer small amounts from our joint savings. Not enough for Mark to notice immediately, but enough to ensure I had some financial independence. This is about survival, she reminded me. We're playing the long game. 5 months into my stay at Willowbrook, Mark's visits had dwindled to monthly obligations that lasted 30 minutes at most. During his December visit, he seemed distracted and impatient. How are you feeling? He asked, checking his watch. Some days are better than others, I replied honestly. The doctors say your condition is stable. I watched his face carefully. Yes, they're pleased with my response to treatment. Something flickered in his expression. Disappointment? Frustration? That's good, he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. Mark, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy that I'm doing better than expected? The question caught him off guard. Of course I am. Why would you ask that? You seem upset when the doctors give good news about my health. I'm not upset. It's complicated, Emma. Planning care, managing everything at home with Lily. And Amanda? His face flushed slightly. Amanda is helping with the household responsibilities. While pregnant with your child. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Emma, we should discuss practical matters, he said finally. Long-term planning for your care. What kind of long-term planning? Advanced directives. End-of-life preferences. Making sure everything is in order. He wanted me to sign papers planning my own death while I was actually improving. I pretended to consider Mark's suggestion about advanced directives while secretly meeting with Mrs. Wilson to understand what he was really asking for. Advanced directives are legitimate documents, she explained. But the timing is suspicious given your improving condition. What would happen if I signed them? It would give your husband significant control over your medical decisions if you became incapacitated. Given his behavior, I'd recommend against it. Instead, we drafted a new healthcare directive that specifically limited Mark's authority and designated Lily as my primary healthcare advocate when she reached 18. We're also ready to file separation papers, Mrs. Wilson informed me. We have enough evidence of financial impropriety to request immediate asset protection. What will happen when Mark receives the papers? He'll likely be shocked and angry. Are you prepared for that confrontation? I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, weak and trusting, accepting whatever decisions were made for me. Then I thought about the woman I was becoming, clear-minded and determined to protect my daughter's future. I'm ready, I said. The separation papers were filed on a Friday morning in January. Mrs. Wilson estimated Mark would receive them by Monday afternoon. I spent the weekend mentally preparing for the storm that was about to break. Mark received the separation papers on a Tuesday. According to the process server, he stared at them for several minutes before his face went completely white. For hours later, he stormed into Willowbrook like a man possessed. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, waving the papers as he burst into my room. I looked up from my book with practice calm. After months of preparation, I felt ready for this moment. "Hello, Mark. I see you got my paperwork. Separation papers? Asset freezes? Emma, what are you doing?" Protecting myself and our daughter from financial fraud. Mark sat down hard in the visitor's chair. "This is insane. You're sick. Sick people don't file for separation. Sick people also don't usually discover their husbands are stealing from them while planning their funerals." His face cycled through confusion, anger, and something that looked like panic. "I never stole anything. Those are our joint accounts. I have every right to access them. To buy baby furniture for your pregnant girlfriend?" Mark's mouth opened and closed without sound. "To redecorate our house while telling neighbors I'm in hospice care? Who told you that? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've been systematically planning for my death while I've been fighting to live." Mark's panic was shifting back to anger. "You're ruining everything, Emma. Amanda and I are trying to build something good from this terrible situation." "You mean you're trying to build something good from my death?" Mark's anger exploded in ways I'd never seen before. The caring husband mask disappeared completely, revealing someone I barely recognized. "You're being vindictive and petty," he shouted, standing up abruptly. "Amanda is pregnant with my child. We deserve a chance at happiness. Then you should have asked for a divorce instead of waiting for me to die. I was trying to be considerate. I didn't want to abandon you while you were sick. So instead you stole from me and planned my replacement." Mark's face was red with rage now. "You're not going to ruin this for us. Amanda and I have been through too much to let you destroy our future out of spite." "Lower your voice," I said firmly. "This is a medical facility." "I don't care," Mark yelled. "You're being selfish. Even dying, you have to make everything about you." That's when I noticed Nurse Kelly standing in the doorway with a security guard. Mark's shouting had been loud enough to hear throughout the wing. "Sir," the guard said calmly, "you need to lower your voice or leave the premises." "This is my wife," Mark protested. "And this is our patient," Kelly replied firmly. "She has the right to receive visitors who don't disturb other patients." As security moved closer, Mark's expression shifted to something desperate. "Emma, please. We can work this out. Just withdraw the papers, and we'll figure something else out." But I was done being manipulated by his desperation. Amanda finally appeared 2 days later, but her approach was completely different from Mark's explosive anger. She brought flowers and wore the same sweet smile she'd always used to manipulate situations. "Oh, Emma," she said, arranging daisies in a vase. "I'm so sorry about the other day." Mark was just overwhelmed by all this legal confusion. I watched her performance with fascination. Even 7 months pregnant with my husband's baby, she was still trying to manage me. He seemed more angry than confused. I replied calmly. Well, you know how men handle stress. Amanda sat down, placing both hands on her belly. This whole situation has been hard on all of us. I imagine it has been. Emma, I want you to know that everything we've done has been with your best interests in mind. My best interests? Making sure you get the care you need. Making sure Lily has stability at home. Making sure there's a plan for everyone's future. Whose future specifically? Amanda's smile faltered slightly. All of our futures. We're still family, even with these changes. Are we? Of course we are. I've been your best friend for 15 years. That doesn't just disappear because of circumstances. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app, making sure Amanda could see what I was doing. Amanda, I'm going to ask you some direct questions, and I'd like honest answers. Emma, why are you recording this? For clarity. When did you and Mark start your romantic relationship? Amanda looked uncomfortable but maintained her composure. We became close while supporting each other through your illness. When did you start sleeping together? I don't think that's appropriate to discuss. More appropriate than sleeping with your best friend's husband while she fights cancer? Amanda's mask finally slipped. We didn't plan this, Emma. Sometimes life takes you in directions you don't expect. And your pregnancy? What about it? When is the baby due? April. So you conceived in July. 3 months after I was diagnosed. Amanda realized where this was leading but couldn't stop herself. The timing wasn't ideal. But it worked out well for your plans. What plans? To take over my life while I'm too sick to stop you. The legal proceedings moved more slowly than I'd hoped, but Mrs. Wilson had warned me that family court cases involving financial fraud take time to develop properly. We're building a comprehensive case, she explained during one of our meetings. It's better to be thorough than quick. Mark had hired a lawyer who immediately filed motions claiming I was mentally incompetent due to my illness. This required Dr. Martinez to testify about my cognitive function. Mrs. Thompson's mental capacity is completely normal, Dr. Martinez told the court. Cancer affects the body, not the mind, and her current treatment regimen doesn't include medications that would impair judgment. Mrs. Wilson presented our evidence methodically. Bank records showing unauthorized spending, documentation of Mark's lies about my medical condition, and proof that he'd been planning to sell our house without my consent. Your Honor, she said, Mrs. Thompson's husband hasn't just committed adultery. He's systematically planned to benefit financially from her illness while abandoning his responsibilities as her spouse. Mark's lawyer tried to portray me as a vindictive wife who couldn't accept her husband's need to move on. But when the judge reviewed the timeline of events, his argument fell apart. Mr. Thompson, the judge said, you moved your wife to a long-term care facility, began cohabiting with another woman, and started spending marital assets on this relationship all within a few months. Mark's face was pale as he answered. The doctors said her prognosis was poor. But her condition has actually improved since then? Yes, but we didn't know that would happen. The judge's expression was stern. So you made permanent decisions based on assumptions about your wife's death? The financial investigation revealed even more than we'd initially discovered. Mark had not only been draining our joint accounts, but had also taken out credit cards in both our names to fund his new life with Amanda. $15,000 in credit card debt, the forensic accountant reported to the court. All for purchases related to Mr. Thompson's new relationship and household expenses with Ms. Amanda Porter. Additionally, Mark had contacted our insurance company multiple times asking about claim procedures for my life insurance policy. The insurance representative confirmed that Mr. Thompson inquired about policy payouts on 6 separate occasions, Mrs. Wilson told the judge. This suggests premeditation in his financial planning. When this evidence was presented, even Mark's lawyer looked uncomfortable. The judge ordered an immediate freeze on all joint assets and required Mark to account for every dollar he'd spent from our joint accounts over the past year. Furthermore, she continued, all credit cards in Mrs. Thompson's name are to be canceled immediately, and Mr. Thompson is responsible for any debt incurred without her explicit consent. But the most devastating blow came when the judge addressed custody. Given the evidence of Mr. Thompson's financial irresponsibility and deception, I'm ordering a full custody evaluation before making any decisions about the minor child's living arrangements. Mark's face crumpled as he realized that his perfect plan was falling apart in ways he'd never anticipated. The custody evaluation process took 3 months and included interviews with Lily, me, Mark, Amanda, and several other witnesses. The social worker's report was damning for Mark and Amanda. The minor child expressed feelings of displacement and emotional neglect in her father's current household, the evaluator wrote. She reported being told that her mother's condition was terminal when medical evidence suggests otherwise. Lily's interview had been age-appropriate but honest about her experience. Dad and Amanda talk about me like I'm a problem they need to solve, she told the evaluator. They said I could go live with Grandma after Mom died, but Mom's not dying anymore. The evaluator also documented the financial instability that Mark's choices had created. Mr. Thompson's current living situation is financially precarious due to his irresponsible spending and upcoming legal obligations. The household lacks the stability necessary for raising a teenager. Meanwhile, my condition continued to improve steadily. Dr. Martinez testified that my cancer was in remission and that I was capable of resuming normal activities with some limitations. Mrs. Thompson has responded remarkably well to treatment, she told the court. Her prognosis is now measured in years, not months. The judge's decision was swift and comprehensive. Custody of the minor child is awarded to Mrs. Thompson, effective immediately. Mr. Thompson will have supervised visitation pending completion of counseling requirements. By the time the separation was finalized 18 months after I'd first overheard Mark and Amanda planning their future, my health had stabilized enough for me to return home. The house felt strange at first. Amanda had removed all traces of my personality during her brief residency there, painting over family photos and replacing my furniture with her own choices. But Lily and I slowly reclaimed our space, room by room. It feels like home again, Lily said as we hung family pictures back in the hallway. Mark was required to pay substantial alimony and child support, which left him with barely enough income to maintain a small apartment. Amanda had moved back in with her sister when Mark's financial situation collapsed. They're not together anymore, Lily reported after one of her supervised visits with her father. Dad says Amanda blames him for not planning better. How do you feel about that? Sad for the baby, but not sad for them, Lily said honestly. They made their choices. The criminal investigation into Mark's financial fraud resulted in probation and community service, but the real consequences were social and professional. His real estate license was suspended, Mrs. Wilson informed me. And most of his former clients have moved to other agents. In a small town, reputation matters, and Mark's had been permanently damaged. 2 years after the legal proceedings ended, I was officially declared cancer-free. Dr. Martinez called it remarkable and statistically unlikely, but I knew that my determination to survive and protect Lily had played a role in my recovery. Stress can definitely impact cancer progression, she explained. Removing the sources of stress in your life may have contributed to your improved health. Lily and I had settled into a new normal. She was now 15, wise beyond her years, but surprisingly resilient considering everything she'd experienced. Do you ever miss Dad? She asked one evening as we cooked dinner together. I miss the man I thought he was, I answered honestly. But that person may have been my imagination. Do you think he misses us? I think he misses the life he had before he made his choices. But that's different from missing the people he hurt. Mark still called occasionally, usually when he was struggling financially or emotionally. His messages ranged from apologies to requests for forgiveness to desperate pleas for help. But I'd learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, and helping someone doesn't require endangering yourself. I forgive him for my own peace, I told Lily. But I don't trust him with our future. On the 3rd anniversary of the night I overheard Mark and Amanda planning their life together, I sat in my garden watching Lily practice for her school's soccer team. My hair had grown back thicker than before, and my body felt stronger than it had in years. The latest medical scans showed no sign of cancer recurrence. I was officially a survivor in every sense of the word. Mark appeared at our front door that evening, looking older and more worn than his 52 years. Through the window, I could see him holding an envelope. Emma, he called through the door. Please. I really need to talk to you. I didn't answer, but I watched him place the envelope by the door and walk away with slumped shoulders. Inside was a letter asking for financial help. His business had never recovered. Amanda was demanding child support he couldn't afford, and he was facing eviction. I know I made terrible mistakes, the letter read, but we had 15 good years together. That has to count for something. I'm asking for a chance to start over. I read the letter twice, then walked to my fireplace and watched it burn. Lily looked up from her homework. Dad again? Yes. What did he want this time? A second chance he didn't earn. Are you sad that you can't give it to him? I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago. Sick, betrayed, abandoned in a care facility while her husband and best friend planned her replacement. Then I looked at the woman I'd become. Healthy, strong, financially secure, and raising a daughter who'd learned that loyalty and integrity matter more than convenience. No, sweetheart. I'm not sad. I'm grateful. For what? For learning that I was stronger than they thought I was. And for discovering that you were brave enough to choose truth over comfort. Outside, Mark's car drove away slowly, and I knew our chapter together was finally closed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation or elaborate schemes. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let other people's choices define your worth, and building something better from the ashes of their betrayal.